Even Lopez is the name. It's my show. Welcome to it.
It is nice to meet you. I know it's virtual, but it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you in the virtual world, man.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. How's everything going over there?
Man, it's going good. It's I just so outside of like what I do as a creative, or one of the things I do as a creative is I'm an educator. So like we just switched to virtual teaching last week. So kind of getting used to that feel was kind of like overwhelming, but it's good though. Just being able to have that time with myself as well.
Were you guys in the beginning doing like both, or were you just all in person in the beginning?
Oh no, we definitely did both. We did virtual teaching during the summer, and then as we went into the fall, we just did face to face and just had a lot of like CDC regulations that we had integrated into like how we were around the kids. And then obviously as COVID got heavy around here in the Quad Cities, we kind of made the decision to pull out and not try to like brave the COVID.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we've been in both worlds during this time.
No, yeah, it's been cool hearing from cool or whatever word you want to use, hearing from different people that are affected different, and like the timelines are different. Like I know Fantana when I talked to him, because the same area, it was the same thing. Like it was like a delayed timeline from like Chicago or like whatever city you're in.
Different places are definitely handling it a little different. So it is interesting to see how like other cities are handling, I bet.
Well, and it's also just hitting places differently. Like it just took time. But all right. So on your music tip, though, I want to say congrats, because I know you just dropped a project. I was actually just listening to it.
Oh, that's love. Yeah, appreciate that, bro, man. Yeah, it feels good to have that out. I mean, like as a creative, like when you finally get something out, it's kind of like that breath of like relief, almost like I got it done.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like open mind space is. I know usually like the week that I release something, I'm like, then I can like make a bunch of new stuff. Like,
yeah, oh yeah, I feel like I'm like always because even like when I'm working on one project, I'm always like working on a couple others. So like after I finish that one project, I'm like, okay, let me take a breath.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good too, because you really gotta do that sometimes. Well, so I want to know about everything, because I'm really just meeting you, and I'm glad too. I'm glad we got connected. So let me ask, how did you? Is it from Fantana that we linked up?
Yeah, the homie Fantana. Yeah, it was through him, because he contributed a bunch to this last project.
Right.
And I just worked with him on like a bunch of various projects. So he told me about you and your podcast, and that's how he connected.
Well, that's awesome. Shout out to him. He's one of the first episodes on this new show that we're doing, and I'm a huge fan of his work. So I was already going to check out your stuff anyways, as we were going to do an interview. So I usually always do that. But then just to hear the production already from what I've heard, I really liked it. Sounds really crisp, like really dope. So like, when did you start making music?
That's a funny question for sure. It's a long-winded one.
That's all right. We got time, baby.
Oh yeah, good deal. Essentially, I started music when I was 12 years old, and what music looked like for me at 12 years old was poetry, right? Because and I say that out of my influence to write poetry was rap. Like a lot of my early influences, or late, if you will, because I didn't really listen to rap till I was like in junior high, because my parents were very like conservative, never let us listen to any music outside of like church music. So 12 years old was the first time I heard rap. So I was kind of late in knowing rap, if you will.
Do you remember the first rap song you heard?
Oh yeah, easy. Nas Made You Look.
Okay, all right.
First rap song, like I had that memorized. I had that joint memorized, and like when Spotify and iTunes were on our phones, I'd always just take my like little phone and record like a 45-second snippet on beats. And
that's so real, dude. That's so real. I remember the days where you had the cassette in the radio, and you were waiting for the top 9, so you just record the top 9 on it.
Yeah. It's showing our age a little bit, right?
I guess. Yeah.
But that was kind of my intro into like writing poetry, because when I heard rap, obviously it drew me, because it had so much of a different energy, attitude, as opposed to what I heard just being somebody who was like the son of like a pastors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was completely drawn to it, but I was also like in this kind of like space of like not really being sure of myself and not having like confidence to like write my own raps, because like growing up in Rock Island, because of like my kind of like my narrative growing up, like with parents who were pastors, very like guarding of us. I didn't really know a lot about my own culture, like as like an African American, which is silly. Like I didn't really like no artists, no like things like this is that the other. So like I'd have kids in high school, in junior high, high school, elementary school, call me white because of that. So like, with that considered, bringing it full circle, like I never had the confidence to rap when I was like in junior high because I'm like, man, like that's like a black sport, and people say that I'm white, so like I can't really do that. So that self-confidence to actually rap didn't come to like later when I was like 23.
That's a really interesting dynamic. What was the diversity like in your high school?
Oh, our high school was very, it was diverse by bodies, I'd like to say, but still very compartmentalized with like people's culture. So like I had a school who like were Hispanic, like we had a Hispanic culture, a heavy black culture, and like a white culture as well. But we didn't really like socialize in healthy ways, I guess. And what I mean by that is like, you have Brad over here who would hear, little Travis over here talk in Ebonics, as they call it, and this person over here would like mock him for that because that's not the proper way of speaking English, you know? So like with that, you kind of have these bodies together, but it was still very like divided in a sense where like a person like me who was like black, but also like spoke well and all this and this, that, and the other, I didn't fit into that compartmentalized idea of what black was, so people would just call me white.
Right. I hate that shit. I mean, I know that's a thing, but it's bullshit. You know, especially it's so funny about high school. It's just such a weird microcosm that's 4 years when you're young, and like it shouldn't be as impactful as it is, I guess, but it is. And like, you really do notice like, well, I mean, even for me, like I'm 30. So like when I was in high school, it was 15 years ago. I can even think about some of those things, and like some of those things were definitely not politically correct. How now, like even like lunchroom, like how the tables are and shit. Like you're like,
exactly,
it's all clicking.
It's just, I mean, like, being in high school, it hits us as such like a vulnerable. This is my educational psychology brain going on, but it hits us as such a vulnerable place where like psychologically at the age that we're at in high school, we're trying to figure out our identity. And like if we found it, we cling to that super hard, not knowing why, but we just do it because we need that identity at that age. So like high school is very interesting in that we're like, with my identity, I didn't really know where I fit because I had aspects of me who like, again, like who was a fan of rap, who was a big fan of like Nas and Busta Rhymes and Lil Wayne, and like really revered black art. And obviously being somebody who was like really into like my own history as a black male. But also on the other side, I had on weekends I hang out with my homies Travis, Kyle, and Steve, like for Boy Scouts and stuff like that. So I had this like duality of like I felt like an anomaly almost, you know.
That's I think that's healthy. But
oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's a lot more. It seems like a lot more common now. I mean, I don't know. I'm old now and I'm just looking back kids, but it does seem like kids are doing like a more diverse amount of things now. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
You'll have the nerds rapping and shit, like, or whatever. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like I'm 29 years old, so I can definitely like vouch for that as well. Just like and working at a school where like I see kids who don't feel compartmentalized to like what black is or what white is, and are just like being a lot more progressive in like knowing that they can do that. Black, as it may be their identity, it's not a prison. Like you don't gotta just abide by this rule of what blackness or whiteness is, but you can just be and do what you want and like find yourself in that. So it's good to see that, you know. It's like
that's beautiful. See, that's the positive, the optimism that we need looking towards some of the future, because we really don't talk about that shit that much. But like hearing that from somebody who's an educator, hearing that we have, like, look at these kids. These kids are trying. These kids are doing new things. Like, so
absolutely.
A lot of positive things on the way. And to speak to what you're saying about women, or about everybody, but great to see Kamala Harris now, because that's a great inspiration for young black women. So, I mean, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's just changing that narrative, you know, changing it to something like, as you said, positive, give something that's optimistic and life-giving, you know. So it's good to see that, definitely.
Yeah, we're gonna need that going into a brand new year coming up here, which is actually by the time this will be out, it will be the new year, just so you know. But
nice. That's dope. That's something to think about.
Yeah, it is kind of right. I like have waited to release a bunch of music myself until the new year, not on purpose, but kind of on purpose too. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like, let's just get through this.
Yeah, I feel you. It's kind of like I don't know exactly what it is for you, but like it's kind of the strategy brain that you get behind, like when you do music, like, okay, like just knowing, like reading the times, the temperament of like where things are around you, and like, okay, maybe it's not best to release this now, but maybe I'll wait to there.
Well,
So
I'm actually just getting better at that. Even though I've been releasing music for a long time, I was never great at that. And finally, I'm like really planning more. But
yeah.
let's steer back into since we're talking music again, let's steer back into so when exactly you start, because I wanted to eventually get into the fact that, I mean, you could say it's spoken word. I mean, it's still rap, it's still music when I'm listening to it. It really is. But there is a mix of
Absolutely.
that spoken word. So when does that start to come to fruition where you're writing raps and you're recording them? Like, when does that start to happen?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it was more. It started to kind of like really blossom when I started to really get around homies who did different art forms than myself. You know, like being in a community where there are like rappers and rappers who are like super duper dope. You know,
Right.
like in our community, and like I think just being around them, it kind of just passed the energy. You know, and kind of like it kind of allowed me to kind of like find confidence, I guess, too, because like a lot of those homies are fans of like my spoken word, and like they knew that like my influences were rap and battle rap as well, and like because of that, they would tell me like in the most honest way, like, yo, like if you tried out rap, if you really wrote rap, like you would be dope at it. So it's definitely owed to my homies and just being around good people who kind of pass a good energy. But after I kind of like gave myself the permission to kind of just like get outside of my like zone of comfort art wise, which was like about 2-3 years ago. When I was like 26, I started working on my first rap projects, which was Sensei Syllables, Volume 1 and Volume 2, which is also on Spotify and all that.
Yeah, I got your Spotify pulled up right here. Actually, that's what I'm looking at.
Bet.
Okay. All right. So Sensei Syllables, that was your first drop?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sensei Syllables was my first drop. There's like 2 volumes of the project.
Yeah.
One was like produced by all the beats on on the first one were produced by my roommate King Supreme, amazing DJ and beat producer. He did all the beats for that one, and then the second one, my homie Orlando Coolridge from Chicago produced all those beats. So I kind of wanted to give them their like ode to like their artwork. So I kind of made the project separate.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, that's awesome. I like to see this. I'm looking at your. I'm just looking at your whole Spotify page right now. So, how many singles did you drop from this new project before they came out? I know a couple. War on Mugs was out.
Yep, that was the only single I dropped from
Okay.
this project.
Okay, nice.
You know, it was the first one we finished for the project. So like, I think it was just the most appropriate track to drop to get people like used to what they were gonna hear.
No, there was a bunch of interesting stuff, you know, like that's why it's almost like I need to like listen, because, you know, I'm sure, you know, as a writer, you really drop a lot of stuff in from what I'm hearing, because it's like you make the kind of rewind rap, if you will.
Yeah, yep. Mm-hmm.
Which is great. I mean, that's the shit I like. That's the shit I like to do, like make you think about it real quick. And I think it's interesting hearing that you say you have a background with your parents as pastors. So just like real briefly, like, what was that, or what has that been like for you now, sharing your art with your parents who are in the church? Yeah,
you know what? Like, I don't think I ever like intentionally like ever sit down with my parents and like, hey, like listen to this thing I made. So like, I've never had that with them, but they're very supportive from the aspect of like seeing like what I'm doing with my art, not just like as a musician. But also like being a creative arts educator, and working in the schools, and also like using art to kind of like bridge gaps like in community with things like that. They see that aspect of what I'm doing with my art form and can like respect that, though they may not be on the same page of like what I talk about like topic wise or how I go about things artistically. So we have a healthy relationship in that, where like they respect it and understand that like it may not be their thing or like something that they like enjoy listening to on a daily basis, but like they see what it's doing like for people, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it can be therapeutic. Was it like a prominent church, or do they work the same church growing up, or how was that?
Yeah, they went to the growing up, they went to the same church like all throughout my elementary years to junior high. And then like so my mom came from like a heavy church family, and they lived in Mississippi, moved up to the Quad Cities, and like when she moved up, they all moved up with her. And her mom was a pastor who had like a couple of buildings in her lifetime of being a pastor, and like whatever building she moved to start church at, my parents would just follow that.
Okay.
So, they definitely heavily value church, but like even with some of the stuff that I've said, like about like how I didn't know rap existed until I was like 12.
Yeah.
like that super gated community my parents kind of created. They were very good in that they didn't push like church on us, even though we had like these certain rules that they abided by, which was just out of their own like dogmatic beliefs. They still didn't like force us to like go to church if we didn't want to. They didn't force us to like sing in the choir if we didn't want to. They didn't force us to go and like do fucking testimonies and shit if we didn't want to, you know. So
right. I have a pretty similar experience in the regard that my mom is a pastor, and so like it was never too forceful or anything like that. I mean, we did listen to like rap, I guess, when I was younger, but so not, it wasn't like that that strict in, but like it was like a something that we did, and it was still like involved. It was still part of our life, but it was never like really pushed. And I've actually found that a bunch of my musician friends had some sort of like church, like whether or not it be that they went a lot as a kid, or that there's just like, I don't know. I know a couple people that had like parents that were pastors that are now like musicians.
Yeah, right. You know, that's crazy. Now that I'm thinking about it, a lot of my close homies who I fuck with a lot, art wise, did come from like a heavy church background, which is like, that is crazy when I think about it now. I just brought that up.
Well, when else do you have a time in your life where there's once a week, like, and like there's an hour thing you go to and half of it is music? Like,
like right. That is true. Yeah. Cause it's just the energy and all that. Like, and honestly, like, even beside, like, I always tell people, even though like my religious and spiritual beliefs are like a lot more different than my parents now, obviously, there's still part of me that's like happy that I went through that experience though. Like, like having parents who were pastors, and like even though like they had like a very dogmatic, religious, like a very like literal, interpreted like religious world. I think a lot of like growing up with that narrative of like living in that, and then at one point in my life realizing I didn't need that, it kind of made me like see the world from like a different kind of like perspective that's kind of added to like what I do as an artist, honestly, and what I do like as a creative altogether. So I think having that like space where I was like in church was like a good part of my narrative.
Yeah, you know, I feel you. Like I've been kind of thinking about that too, because I have, you know, different, more open beliefs. You know, it's like a lot of like, it's like everything we're talking about, things are evolving, and I think a lot of people's views are evolving, especially when it comes to literal beliefs. Whether or not it be, you know, the appropriate way to raise a child or whatever, to have them start, you know, what I keep hearing, or not what I keep hearing, but the metaphor I've heard for it, that it seems to work better going in than out and coming back in, if you're going to come back in.
Yeah.
And then starting out and coming in, it seems a lot easier to focus this way and then bring.
Yeah, I like that. Being able to go in it and then understand you don't have to be of it. Yeah, I mess with that. Man, that's actually super dope.
I think that was, I don't want to take all credit. I think that's Richard Rohr, who I've heard.
That's my whole, you fuck with Richard Rohr?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I do. He's been on a couple of, so Pete Holmes is a comedian that I listen to a lot, and Richard Rohr was on there, and that's kind of how I heard some of stuff. But he's a good, like, he's still in the church, but very like open.
Yeah. Loose, right? He teaches more from like the wisdom tradition, which is like beautiful. Like that's one dude who really changed my perspective growing up.
Yeah.
Like, Richard Rohr, guys like him, Ram Dass.
Man, this is if you don't listen to Pete Holmes, like, you made it weird, you'd probably enjoy him, because all he talks about is Ram Dass.
I've heard you made it weird. Actually, his Pete Holmes podcast was my first encounter with Richard Rohr. Actually,
that's me too. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like years ago.
That's really, really funny. It has had a significant change on the perspective that I've viewed things, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a wise dude, bro.
Yeah. But and actually, like, you know, like you were kind of saying, musically too, I think having those initial, like, because when I started making music, I was like 20, 21. And so I still held on to some of those earlier beliefs, I'd say a little stronger. But I actually think it makes for good writing, like when you're writing and you have those like really strong ideologies and then they evolve. I'm kind of happy that I went through that too. Like,
yeah. Well, it's funny. It's funny that you bring that up, because in my project that I just dropped, Aubizms II, there's a track called Stars of Mizak. where I kind of talk about like my religious beliefs like in there. But in the on that specific song, I bring up how like when you look at rap as a whole, like just the culture of rap, the history of rap from beginning till DJ Kool Herc to now, like you will not find one rapper that has not like had some kind of like religious, spiritual sentiment in their music.
Yeah, a lot of them do.
Even the most quote unquote secular artists, like who like is from who's cut from the cloth of hip hop. Let's say Biggie.
Yeah.
You will still find an aspect of religion or spirituality in his art, just because like I feel like there's a spirituality that breathes through creatives, you know.
Yeah.
That kind of like that. It's kind of like life giving in a sense.
Well, I feel that like because I mean I kind of feel like creativity and that kind of energy, and like that's why I just think music in general you're just supposed to just like it's a part of it, like you put it out in the world, and it kind of feels like a part of all that. Yeah, It kind of feels like a part of all that. So I kind of get like I get it, like everything like because like what the fuck just happened? We just spent an hour in the studio and there's a 2-minute song that lives forever. What the fuck was that? I don't know.
Yeah, there's an energy behind that, man. Like there's an energy behind that. It's crazy because so like I'm always putting my homies on this story, but 2 years ago, I believe now, I went to I think it was like 2018. I went to Haiti to teach for 2 weeks, like teach art and shit like that, like teach poetry and all that, and collab with some artists down there. But I had like a 2-hour conversation for a podcast that I did last year or 2 years ago. I had this 2-hour conversation with a voodoo priest out there.
Oh wow!
Like who was an artist as well, and like just sitting down and chopping it up with her, like it was fucking dope. Like I think we saw the podcast episode up, so
I might have to check that out. What is voodoo? Like what is the? I don't even know what that religion entails. Or
yeah, so it's not a religion. Is what I learned from the voodoo priest. It's a lifestyle. It's a life practice. Like it doesn't have like a rule to it, you know. Like it's a life practice that can be like integrated into anything. So like with that said, like this voodoo priest, she practiced voodoo, but still went to Christian church. She could do that because like voodoo is her lifestyle practice and is breathed through like Christianity there, you know. But she said something super dope during our interview when I asked her a question of like when she was talking about how like artists like are the medium in which our ancestors speak through. I was pretty much asking her like when like you know when you have those moments like as a creative when you're waking up at like 2-3 just randomly you're like okay I don't know why I'm up but I got this thing that I want to write and it kind of feels like it's automatic.
Yeah.
I asked her like how that was like interpreted through voodoo, and she said like in those moments when you wake up like that, that's a spirit of your ancestor waking you up, like kind of like influencing you, like, hey, bro, I got something for you to write real quick, and it's just filtered through like our language, which is hip hop. And like when she broke that down to me, I'm like, holy shit! It just made me look at like the world of hip hop way different. Like it's all like
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very obviously somewhat woo-woo, like a little out there, but the concept is, the concept makes a ton of sense. The concept is,
that's what I'm saying. Don't even look at the faculty, but look at the philosophy. The faculty, the philosophy is like crazy.
Well, right, because we don't even know, and I've heard plenty of people talk kind of about this, especially you get all like stoned conspiracy, like what the fuck are ideas? Like, what are ideas? What are like, so like, could an idea from a long time ago manifest in somebody's dream now? I don't know. Is that possible? I mean, I don't think anybody knows anything.
Yeah, but I also think, like, I also like to tell people too, like, it's also based on like our cultural upbringings too, like, and it all kind of points back to that track "Stars of Mizak." Like for me, like when I heard this voodoo priestess say this, obviously there was a part of me that's just like, man, this is fucking stupid. But then I'm like, wait, it's stupid because I'm an American who has these ideas already. Like I'm a product of that. So like me hearing shit that's happening in Haiti, of course it's gonna sound fucking stupid to me because I'm an American. I'm not cut of that cloth, you know.
No, that's 100% true. You're 100% right. You teach somebody that when they're 3 years old, that's different. Like they're gonna believe that, or like at least have a different mind frame on what that means for their whole life. It's not gonna be looked at like, oh, that's a crazy thing because it was a part of their life. And yeah, look. A lot of us there's a lot of flaws in the way that kids are growing up now, but there's a lot of great things too, obviously. But yeah, the speed at which things are, the willingness to dismiss something as crazy or stupid and something like that in particular, I think is probably not good. Like we do too much of that.
Yeah, I think we just miss out on something good when we do that, you know? Like
Yeah.
when we have like this perception of reality that we're like, this is reality, this is real to me, and anything outside this box is stupid, you're compartmentalizing yourself, you know? Like you're pretty much saying like, this is how I perceive reality, and anything that like kind of like comes and clash with it is not, it can't be real, you know? And it kind of robs you of like the letting down those walls and saying like, okay, I know that I know, but I also know that I don't know, and kind
Right.
of leave that curiosity, that kind of creative thinking a little bit open to like the things that sound crazy, you know?
Yeah. A lot of that seems to come with time though. I mean, but maybe not. Maybe, it's just perspective when you're like, if you're taught these kind of, I keep thinking, and I go back to that thing about going in and then out. Like if you had that kind of upbringing, what, because that's kind of out, but then where does it go? I don't know. Where does it go is what I guess I'm curious. Like how do those beliefs evolve if you're taught that when you're really young or something like that, for example?
Mm-hmm.
Curious. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Like how do those ideas like evolve? Like when you were taught to like when you're taught to just look at things through like a compartmentalized lens, you mean, right?
Well, yeah, I kind of mean, I guess I'm definitely out of my own, I don't know, comforts or not comforts of water. I don't know, whatever. But I'm just saying like, if you're brought up in, I'm curious, like the voodoo tradition or other traditions that are more, like open to like these kind of like spiritual things like that, or like phenomenons, I guess, kind of, you're more open to that. So then how does your spiritual journey tend to go more like, does it stay that way? Because I think it's very common that somebody who grows up in the church, like me or you, will be in the church. Then when they're like in their 20s or 30s, go like, I don't know if I believe that this thing happened. And then like when you're older, we'll probably be like, okay, just calm down. Let's just go, whatever. Like, I mean, that's much more common, that story. So I guess what I'm curious about is how does that path go when you're starting so far out?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah, I think like I don't know, like just being in Haiti, and this is just going off like my isms, obviously, and just kind of like my interpretation of it. But I'm just like being in Haiti and kind of like being in this space where like spiritually the culture's like, yeah, like there's open space here. I think because they like understood that, it made it all the more
Yeah.
better. Like it made it all the more easy for them to be like, okay, like because like I already see this open space, I can compartmentalize this a little bit here, but there's no neediness behind it. You know, so like for me, like I kind of like for me, like with my spiritual beliefs, though I have like this space of like kind of openness that everything is connected, that everything is like one, like it's possible for me to still like, because like again, like with me, like because like I was kind of cut from the cloth of like having Christian parents, like that's where I filter a lot of like my philosophy because that was given. But like how that looks different is that it's not needy. Like if somebody was to like tell me that God's not real, it's just like, okay, that's beautiful that you think that. There's no neediness there. Yeah. Like as opposed to like if I started there, like there would be more of a neediness to argue my point because like I'm afraid of like that open space.
Yeah, no, I think that makes more sense. That it actually seems healthier. It seems way healthier. If you can still have in touch with that, they're knowing that there's something, but being open to not knowing what it is. Whereas I think a lot of I'm so set in my ways until I'm not set in my ways.
Richard was a big teacher on it, you know, like that teacher of like holding things in creative tension, if you will. That's what he calls it. Like just being able to be like, okay, like I may have this belief and like this belief may like decide for me my values and this and the other. But if this belief was gone tomorrow, cool, I'm all right. You know, like I think that's more so like kind of the energy of like that having that openness looks like when you can open it and like also like create your own kind of like narrative or follow like a tradition and all that.
Yeah, no, I've been like going on a somewhat of a journey through all of these things that we're kind of talking about. I know it's kind of all over the place. So if you guys enjoy this, you enjoy this. I'm here for it. Because like it's I don't know, it's all interesting. Like how I don't know. I just met so many people that have the same questions but don't talk about it as much. But they're like, it is what it is, and it's like kind of like, well, why not? I mean, you're like, you should talk about. I mean, like, you shouldn't be feeling so guilty about, the sex thing, all the things, the drugs thing. I mean, I'm like super open comparative to like how I was more hesitant with all this stuff. I guess legalization of marijuana helps. But in all honesty, it's just the good versus bad. What is that? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, hey, yeah. How, like, yeah. What are we saying when we mean like good and bad? And like, yeah, just having those conversations. It's funny because I had this, there's like I went on like, I love going on like hikes and stuff like that, but I was driving out to this national park with a friend this past summer, and we got into the topic of religion a little bit, and like as I was like expressing kind of my religious beliefs, this friend like after said like, oh well, like I don't want to argue, so we don't have to have this conversation anymore. I'm like, but why do we have to argue?
yeah.
Like, this is like, I don't see it as like there's nothing like debate. There's nothing like, this could be a healthy conversation. Like, even if you're not a religious person, like this could be like, and I don't consider myself religious in like what we see that as textbook definition as, but like, if you're able to have those conversations, like they're life-giving, like, yeah, they're scary. Yeah, they're vulnerable. Yeah, they may like make you look at yourself and be like, oh shit, fuck, I gotta look at myself. And
no, but you're exactly right. But see, you like almost answered the question that I was gonna ask. Is like, yeah, they're sensitive to everybody. They're scary topics for people. So people get really touchy when the topic comes up. And if you question, I mean, not always. I don't want to generalize. I don't like generalizations. Are not good, obviously. But like a lot of times, you know, if you question somebody's like religious beliefs and they've never questioned them themselves, yeah, it can feel a certain way, I guess.
Yeah, it's understandably scary. Like I always give my friends grace when I like kind of like see them kind of shudder to those conversations, because like, okay, I get it, because it's, again, like it's kind of a product of like our culture, our cultural upbringings, and like this isn't the end all tell for everybody, but like I think a part of like our culture that we value as being Americans is to be comfortable, to always be comfortable, to never really step into a space where you're uncomfortable when you don't need to be.
Right.
And like with that, people are less vulnerable. People are less likely to have those conversations that will fucking like be life-changing, but it's too uncomfortable. So I think like part of us, like we throw politics and religion in the uncomfortable box. And we're like, we're not going to talk about any of that, even though people talk their heads off about fucking politics nowadays.
Yeah, I know, right? It's well, I mean, look, that's the thing about it all. It all has become a team sport. Politics, religion has become a team sport for a lot of people. I mean, look, whether or not you're a Christian, whether or not you believe Jesus, if the story of Jesus and that character that is described in that book came back, he'd probably be like, why did you guys start Christianity? He'd probably be like, what are you guys doing? Like, like he would. So, I mean, I think we've lost a lot of it, but oh, you know what I was going to ask to go with this, because I think you were kind of getting there. Have you seen The Social Dilemma?
Yes. Oh shit. Yeah. I seen that shit. Yeah.
We don't have to go too far into it, but I do think so. They talk about how kids nowadays are like having a lot of trouble, like starting conversations with people and like just socially interacting. Like even like 13-year-olds going up to people saying like, "What's up?" Which is like, that's crazy to me. Like, so we're losing that, but then you're going to lose real dialogue in all senses then if you don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, absolutely. You know what's funny? Like, so like I deactivated my Facebook at the beginning of this year, and I haven't used it like since, just because like it's one of those places for me where I learned that like it's a space where like people only know how to have dialogue over there, right? So like I'll say it like this: like there's many times whenever I did this thing on Facebook when I was using it, where I make a post and like I would just watch who would say what, and like I would wait for somebody to like disagree with it and say like after, yo, like I'm glad you disagreed. Let's meet and have coffee and let's talk about it. Not one person out of all the times I did that ever wanted to like go out and talk. They wanted, but they were so adamant on making their point through this computer. And I'm like, this is for your ego. Yeah. Like the fact that you can't meet with me and have the same conversation, like it shows that it's kind of like out of this sense of like ego, because like you're even though I may not be paying attention to the words, like you're saying these words that'll give you validation from the 74 people who heart react to your post.
Yeah, right.
And again, like watching Social Dilemma, fire off dopamine. That's like crack, you know? Oh
my God, dude. Like I can't stop thinking about the 3 guys that are like playing the game that are trying to get the kid to click back on the icon or whatever. I can't stop thinking.
Yeah.
Like, scared me. Now, Facebook's a scary place. Facebook's the place you want to, if you want to go find out who in your, I don't know, circle of people feels a certain way, that's where you go for Facebook. It's dark.
Man, I'm telling you, all that. It's a clubhouse. It's a clubhouse network. You know, just like you were saying, like it's just like you pick a club. Like if you're part of the Republican club, you have fucking 20 Facebook pages that you like. You're posting these gifs to like poke at the liberals, and then the liberals over here doing the same thing. It's just like, bro, like this is a fucking. It's just a cluster of like.
on a day-to-day basis, I mean, there is obviously a lot of tension, but on a day-to-day basis in my life with a lot of people that I encounter, that even the ones that if I know anybody who like has views that are somewhat different than me, even political, because I don't whatever, it's not, but not whatever, but you know what I'm saying. But even those, like on an actual real life basis, I'm not out here fist fighting with people. Like it's not exactly the greatest temperature check, but it is a temperature check.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everything. I mean, it's just funny. Like I think like I mean, just the premise of like debating and fighting over ideas, as you said earlier, like ideas which in reality are just like fiction that we've made. It's fiction that we've made nonfiction by like speaking it. Like we're arguing things that are fake for the most part. That are not.
I'd love to know the percentage of politicians or anybody in power that has clinged onto an idea that they don't fully believe in for a long time. Because I'm sure it's a ton of people. It just is what it is. Like they end up making this idea that maybe it just came out of nowhere, or maybe it was thought out, but then they change their opinion, but they can't change their opinion because they can't. Like I think that happens all the time.
Exactly, and it's just like it's just like for me, like I feel like I'm always like on the outside looking in from it, of just kind of like being in that space. But it's just like, man, like why not just have conversations and get to know the other person's perspective? Because like if you really have authentic conversation, you'll probably find that like the person and you are probably in the same space. You guys it looks different in your narratives.
Oh, 100%. That's why you got to zoom out, man. I feel you. And you know what? You create a lot of conversations. I'm swinging it back, but this is what we're doing. You create a lot of conversations with your lyrics. I mean, you really do. Yeah. And whether it be religious or political, or, I mean, the racial tension obviously comes up on your projects. I mean, I did listen to, that song's not on this project, but I did listen to the Cause We Black song.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Obviously a statement there. I guess just, I mean, when did that come out?
Yeah, I wrote that it's funny. I wrote that this past summer, and I actually did a music video with my guys, the Young Creatives. Shout out to them. We just got done with a visual for that for next year. But I wrote that this past summer when I was hanging out with my cousin, and we had a situation where we're like walking up to my house, and I forgot my keys in my house. So like we're at the door knocking, waiting for my roommate and all this, and it's getting cold as fuck. Like like we out there for like 2 hours. I'm like, bro, like I enjoy chopping it up and drinking a beer out here with you and shit, but like I could jump through that window and go in and get us in this motherfucking house.
Right.
And he said, okay, like you can, but you shouldn't. You know why? Because he said, like, nigga, it is Harrison Street, and there's cops that come up and down the street, and they will like see us and think you're breaking in.
Yeah.
And like we're laughing about it, like it's a joke, but at the same time, there was a reality to that. Like, oh shit, like there's things that I can do as a human being, but things that I shouldn't do because of somebody's perception, which is manifested again off of an idea of who I am. It's just like that fucking sucks. Like it even transcends just like that situation. Like there's people who feel like they can't really be their full selves, whether it's in their workplace, around like their social circle, because of like their different like ethnicity or cultural values, as opposed to the greater mass around them. And so I wrote that song. I literally wrote that song like while we were waiting for my my roommate. I cranked it out in like an hour and a half and just went through this narrative, like what this looks like for me, but also what this looks like for other like people who share my narrative as like Black people who live in America and all that. And like, again, like with me, I like to be able to create art that like has the layers of like, I'm talking about reality in its most rawest, authentic way, without any need for positivity, but at the same time, I still want to give something life-giving. Because like I don't want to just give you a dead flower and leave a dead flower. It's like, why do that? Like I want you to see that dead flower, and then once you like sit with it, breathe with it, mourn with it, and like familiarize yourself with it, that flower will bud back to life. I want you to see both. So with Cause We Black, with that said, I want to create this narrative where like I'm aware of that reality that I'm like stuck under because of like our human laws and orders and all that, but still living in the liberation from it. knowing that like, okay, like I may be limited here, but I'm not going to let that limit dictate who I am as a human being and as a transcendent human being, you know? So,
yeah, I like that. It's kind of like I like hearing when some people, because some people do this. It's all about how you, I guess, work a song, but you kind of hear the evolution in the song, almost like you would hear in an album, in a project. But in the song, you hear the evolution of the growth of it. I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
yeah, just the starting emotions to like the ending emotions. Yeah,
right. Which is a lot of times how people look at albums. But that's kind of, you can do, some songs are like that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and that's exactly what I wanted the song to be. Like, I wanted to be progressive because, like, I mean, a lot of my art comes from like conversations I have like this, like we've been having, or conversations I have in my head. Like, I'm always thinking about things, and the things I'm thinking about, they're not linear. They don't stay in a space. Like, they're moving. Like, I might think like at the beginning of the day, oh, fuck this bitch, and then at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, but no, she actually. I know she has depression. I know she's struggling with this. So damn, like, I'm the asshole for thinking that, but I'm not at the same time. And like, I'm always having that narrative going through my mind. So my art, I always want to be a reflection of like life being a narrative and not just being like a point of just like, boom, that's all we talk about and nothing really moves. Nothing happens.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I mean, like, that is life. I mean, that is the day. You hate somebody, you love somebody in the same day. You hate somebody, you love somebody in the same minute. I mean, this shit is real life. So I feel that 100%. And I like that that you're doing that. You know, that got me thinking though, what I wanted to ask you earlier. So did you do a lot of spoken word like live, cafes or wherever? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm I'm definitely humble with like when it comes to like being a writer of spoken word, but like I'm like I do it for sure. Like when it comes to spoken word, like that's just like my heart and soul. So like,
well, I mean, I could hear that. So I want to know, like, so how you been doing that your whole like life or what? Like,
no, yeah, so like the timeline thing, like I started writing when I was 12, went to college, and like I first majored in creative writing and all that when I was like 22. Was told I couldn't really do shit with that. But then at 25, I was introduced to a bunch of homies. No. When I was 24, I was introduced to a lot of homies in the Quad Cities, where I'm from, who did spoken word as art, and like I kind of knew what it was. From like, I think from the cliches of knowing what it is when you see it in movies or fucking like college open mics. But the shit that they were on were like, these guys were like influenced by battle rap and rap culture.
Yeah.
And because of that, their art, their spoken word looked different. And like, it was something that I gravitated towards because I'm like, holy shit, like,
well, do you remember Def Jam poetry or like when they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those were dope. I know there were some awesome ones on those. I know that's not exactly the same thing, but there were some cool ones on there.
No, I mean that's spot on. I mean, it's pretty close to it though. Like the culture of what spoken word is. Like, it's funny because I have a couple homies who were on Def Jam poetry actually who live in Chicago. Yeah, I got a couple homies who on there who live in Chicago. But that art form, like spoken word, was like what made me, again, like when I started writing poetry when I was 12, I didn't know nothing about spoken word really. Like it was just poetry, like fucking. Even though it was influenced by Nas and all that, it was more written like a fucking Edgar Allan Poe or shit like that. So like when I saw spoken word, I'm like, that is closer to like something I want to do. Like I think I could write that shit. So I started when I was 23, did my first open mic at this like super like duper like white bar that's never seen spoken word. But
Was it just like an open mic like for all kinds of things, or what was the open?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And I was like the first dude who ever like did spoken word at that joint, which was funny as hell. But I started there when I was 23, kind of like kept doing it, kept returning and doing it, and until I got kicked out because like living in the Midwest, so they don't know what the hell it is. They're gonna kick it out of their bars, like which teach his own, you know. Yeah. But out of that, I started my own open mic for spoken word artist called Roaring Rhetoric, just to kind of like be a home for that culture, you know. So obviously with COVID this year, we've had no shows. But
yeah, no, I feel you. I mean, that's kind of I have a not similar in the spoken word thing, but yeah, I used to run events for the company that I started too, and obviously this year was affected by that. But that's great, man. Like, good for you. Congrats to you, because that's awesome. I really like you created a creative home for people who might not like have like you said, you didn't find that art form till you were 23 or whatever. So this is a cool storyline. So you were really doing this hardcore, and then you started recording and getting more into rap a couple of years later, like we were talking about. But it's all in there. It's all together.
Yeah, I'm telling you, like, I like to tell people like this, like everything I do as a creative, like right now, like my whole narrative has always pointed to what I do now. Like I went to school, I'm still going to school for like education right now. I majored in like poetry. I majored in psychology, sociology, and I did all these other things like I was into rap, I was into battle rap and all this. And I feel like it's all goulash into like what I am now. So it's just like, damn, like it's kind of fucking cool to see it like that. Cause like it's like it's kind of a testament to like how the universe works, I guess. Like when you want to do some shit and you just think you can't do it, like whether it's like a myriad of shit or just one thing, like the universe gave that to you and like it'll happen, though it may be a long ass, very strange way it happens, but it happens. So like just being in the space that I am, it's just like, damn, like it was always supposed to like be this way, and like being this creative, like who does rap, even though when I was 12, I was like, oh, I can't do that, you know?
No, that's cool. Inspiring, because I feel that, because I think, I mean, like this year, for instance, 2020 has been a big pivot for a lot of people. They're having to pivot how they're thinking about life and whatnot. Shit, when you're an artist and when you're somebody who's creative and you're following almost an inkling, almost a feeling, and that's evolving and you're letting it evolve, you're always pivoting, and you're willing to pivot because it's not even like the pivots don't even seem like a question, if that meant. Like for me, I'm so tied to like whatever it is that it doesn't even, it's like, oh, I got to get a new job or whatever it is. Those aren't as big of a question. And what I've found is the people that dwell on those parts, like the pivots so much, are probably not meant for this shit in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I know, man, everything's meant to be present in, like, you know, like that's why I always try to remind myself, like, even like now when I get into those mindsets of like being in the spaces of like struggling with the pivots, it's all being, Ram Dass is a big teacher of it, but it's all about just being present with everything. Like even the shit that's hard, the shit that's easy, the shit that's like costing more physical, mental, emotional energy and shit. Like it's all worth it. Like, 'cause it's all building into a narrative, you know, like the struggles of the pivot, the challenges and all that. Like it's building a narrative, and the narrative may suck being in the present right now if you like let your mind go there, but it could be also like, damn, like when I see this months from now, it's going to be a very humbling experience, because like I'm not there anymore, you know?
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. I mean, I think it's all these moments are weird. I feel because I listen to this like once a week, or I'll probably be like, I'm in a down space, and then I'll put on like one of these podcasts and like a spiritual one or something, and then I'll usually get in a good mood. Like I'm probably going to be in a great mood the rest of the night after this conversation. Right, like because you just get it out, you talk about it, it is what it is. But then I do have like a thing where it's like there's a balance there, because like if you're always like, oh, I'm in the moment or whatever, like it's not that practical always. Like
yeah. No, I can see that. I think like when people, I think like it's when we think about being present, it's kind of like this hippie-ish idea of like being one with like the grass, or like just lounging around doing nothing. For me, like, and this is coming from somebody who like, I virtual teach, I go to school, I work on art, and then like doing shit like this, like I don't really have time to be present. So like for me, like being present is less like an impractical look, but more so just like even being here, like just being able to know like this is being present. Like I'm being completely present to what you're saying, to the music that's happening upstairs with my roommate DJing, to just like how good my fucking back feels sitting on the seat because I have a bad back. I'm being present with all of that. So like I feel like being present, it can fit in those practical places. It's just the art of how it looks.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess the only reason I said that is because, and you are so right. That's what you have to remember. Because I guess the reason I said it is because I'm always like, I remember like last night I couldn't fall asleep and my mind is just bouncing back and forth or whatever. And then you're trying to like deep breath or whatever. It's just like when you have so many things going on, you got to remember to do that sometimes, to just calm down for a second. And
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, man, I don't want, you were just saying, like, I know you got a bunch of stuff. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but do you have a couple more minutes, or you got to go anytime soon here?
No, man, I'm good for the night. I'm good.
All right. Well, don't worry. I don't want to take up too much time, but I want to ask you about a couple more, like, of your records. Well, first off, I'm looking at the album. Any particular, for the publishing, the record company, is there any story behind that? Or anything like that?
For the
like the publishing, it says there's like it, or do you have like a publisher for it, or no? Because there's just like some numbers and it says records. I'm just curious if that.
I pretty much that's just through the service I go through to my stuff on Spotify and all that. But yeah, all that was like pretty much like off the like from the ground up, from just people from myself and people that I work with.
No, they'll automate that. I was just curious because I didn't want to miss a question about like if you like used your own publisher or something, or like the poetry company, because you could use that name as your publisher as well.
Oh, got you. Oh yeah, no, nope.
Okay, I want to make sure I don't miss any bright things because I do it all the time.
I feel that. Yeah, no, you good.
So what's are you shooting any? I don't actually. You can give away what you want to, answer what you wanted. Are you shooting any videos? Do you have any singles coming from this project that you're really excited about or that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I have a team that I work with, and we're actually like going to be sitting down this week and talking about some of the visuals for it, because for Aubisms, like, because this project kind of came like unexpectedly, because I got a grant for it from a nonprofit in the around here.
You serious?
Yeah, I got a grant for the project, so I'm like, holy shit, like I gotta make something. So I'm like, okay, let's do Aubizms II.
Good.
And
That's awesome.
we worked on that from the ground up. So like with that said, like because it was so like 0 to 100 to get this done and meet the deadlines and all that, we didn't really think about visuals and all that till like after everything was done. So we're now in the place of like looking at what tracks we like the most or what people gravitate towards the most, and like making visuals out of that. But these visuals are gonna be like, because like I like writing scripts and all that too, like as a creative, these tracks are going to be more short film shot, you know, because I feel like they have a narrative where they can be shot as short films and all that. So we're planning in those right now.
Oh, I like that. That's awesome. Yeah, I tend to a lot of times want to do this similar thing. So I'm curious. I would love to see how that turns out for you. And you know what? I really like the strategy nowadays, although I'm not exactly practicing it with the music video that I'm shooting right now, but I really like the strategy of like seeing what song does the best and then putting a video out for it.
Exactly.
I mean, it speaks for itself. You don't really need to like do the marketing research. You can see it. You can see.
Yeah, you're listening to the people, you know, you have the people feel, you give the people kind of a sense of feeling involved in your creative narrative. I think it's beautiful, you know? So like when you can listen to like, oh, these people like this one, like, let's make a visual for that for the people as like a thank you or an extension of gratitude, you know?
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool that we can do that now. And it's awesome that grant story, man, that's great. So you still got some of that ready to shoot for these videos, or do you use that all in the project?
Yeah, I use that all in the project just to pay the engineer. There was 13 people involved in the whole creation of the project, from producers, studios, and like featured lyricists, and also the people who made the cover art and the track list art and all that. So
dope. I actually really like the cover. I think that's pretty dope.
Yeah, my homie Ginger CC, she's fucking dope.
Shout out to Ginger CC. She snapped. She looks dope.
Yeah, she's dope as shit. And
has she done any of your other artworks? Excuse me.
Yeah, we actually have some projects that we're releasing here next year. Like some we just finished up a book that we worked on for next year, and like some records, and a little like we have a bunch of stuff in the vault.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, you know, a lot of people, I think nowadays you really do got to, you know, dip your hand in a lot of things. And I think it's the best way to do it. And like, it sounds like you're doing that. I like that. So do you have any like background in acting, or what drives you to liking to write scripts?
I just like, I'm again, like just being somebody who like fell in love with poetry. I also fell in love with just like making stories, making narratives. Like, when I ran cross country track from like junior high to college, and like whenever I go on like these long 13 mile runs, I'd always be making up a story to keep myself entertained. So I'd be making like a long-winded story about this character and that character and all this. So like I always kind of had it in my DNA, I guess, to like write stories.
What a perfect time to do that. Running cross country. What a perfect time to do that.
So fucking perfect. Like there's one story that like I actually like wrote out of like one of my long runs for like a college writing course, and like my professor at the time wanted me to like publish it, but obviously at that point I wasn't thinking about any shit like that, so I'm like, nah, I'll just keep it as an assignment. But I've always had that mind to just write stories and shit and just like be creative in that sense. So
yeah, I mean, it's clearly coming to fruition. I'm happy that we got to link up and I got to hear some of your work and we got to have this great conversation, because I didn't know we were gonna link up. I remember like find so many similar common grounds on this. So this is awesome.
Oh yeah, that's a beautiful thing about it, man. Like, going into conversations, like I always go into conversations knowing that like the person I'm gonna be conversing with comes from a different narrative and like has a different perspective on life than me, and like that's dope, because like ideas are traded there. You know, like not even just ideas, but like perspectives are traded. I think it's beautiful. It's never a thing that has to be a debate or argument. It's just like, it's conversation, you know? So I love that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I like, whenever I talk to artists, I just know that we've gone through a lot of similar things. But I know it's not the same. Everybody's story is different. But the emotion that goes into putting art out and not look, none of us get the exact response we're expecting when we put anything out. I don't care who it is.
No.
Get the exact response. So yeah, it's a common feeling. It's a common thread that we all share as creatives. So I always find that bond. And with your, I almost ended up in Rock Island. I almost went to Augie's, so I could have been there.
Oh, that's what's up. I almost went there, actually. I actually picked St. Ambrose over
so right over there in Iowa. Yeah, I was going to I've had the conversation with Fantano, but yeah, I was going to go to Augie to play basketball, and then I ended up switching, going to Elmhurst up here, and I transferred or whatever.
Oh, okay. That's crazy.
I had a couple homies who went to St. Ambrose actually and played basketball. Or I think I knew a couple people, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, maybe like I have a couple homies who play basketball there. Taj, guys like that.
I'm trying to remember who. There was a dude from was there a Jerome on the team? Jerome Robinson or a David?
I've never heard of a Jerome or David. Like the guys that did go there and play basketball are ones that like I know from just doing art. Like my friend my homie Tavian Johnson.
Okay. All right. Well, shout out to those guys because I just mentioned those guys' names for the first time in like 10 years. So shout out to my homies Jerome and David.
Shout out.
No, that's what's up, man. Yeah, I don't know. So like I said, we're gonna have this full conversation for everybody who wants to tune in on my regular show, and then we're gonna break down some of these clips and play some of your songs on the Passion Park Experience. But before we get out of here, there's two questions I want to ask you. One more song of yours that you want to pick that you specifically want to make sure I get played on here. I want you to any of your songs, could be old, could be new. I just want you to like, and maybe give a little story about it or why you picked it.
Okay, so I just because we blacked one of the ones I sent, right?
Yeah, well, not only did you send it, but we also talked about it, so that's perfect because we already can. I want to, that was good. We talked about it. I just want to hear about one more song. I want to hear any sort of story about it.
Okay, we'll do War on Mugs, because that's on my Aubizms II project, and that was actually one of the tracks that was most controversial to the place that gave me this grant for the project because I mean, they sent me they sent my homie who was part of the project a message on why, and like in short, they said that it was a good song, but it was controversial because it talks about drug use, and like part of me was like bothered by that because of the song Warren Muggs. I pretty much take the narrative of like switching cannabis to coffee. Like if coffee was a drug that Reagan wrote off on, how would that fuck up our lives now?
Like, I was going to literally ask you about that line, and I forgot. I wanted to ask you about that because it's exactly – all right, good. So good. You continue. It's a great starting point because you say something about cocaine or coffee is like crack for white people or something like that, right?
Yeah. It's fun. And that line was from one of my homies when I was like super involved in church when I was in college and shit. I had this homie who would always call coffee Christian crack. And like obviously now it sounds fucking ridiculous, but it's kind of funny. Like, wow, like you guys are really like you admit that this is a drug out of that phrase. You admit that you have a dependence on this, but at the same time, you are okay with that. While these homies over here who do marijuana, who smoke, the cats who smoke and do this, they're bad because of their quote unquote addiction that they may not even have. But that's a whole different conversation on that. Right. But it was just funny of like, wow, like so like this is okay, right? Like here. But like anything outside of like the drug that is coffee gets demonized. And like I wrote that track to kind of provoke that question of like how do we get here? Why did we get here? And like how does this like change our perspectives to be like dehumanizing of our neighbor for lack of a better term,
Yeah,
so
no, that's great. Because wait, I was going to say, you also mentioned prohibition in there, right? I mean, it's essentially what you're talking about, but you're like it all lines up: prohibition of weed, prohibition of alcohol, prohibition of
anything. Exactly. Like it's funny because like we paint this war on drugs as being one of the most violent times ever in like history, which like it's only violent because the people who make it violent, like the government that like does all this, and the other. But at the same time, I'm like what about the prohibition? Like when like alcohol was literally like people were out here slanging alcohol like it was like it was an eighth. And like
I think it's a real conversation. Like I never would have thought about this until, I guess until now you hear other podcasts where this is a more common conversation. Whereas like, should drugs even be illegal? What is the, you know, obviously we don't have another good example of like full legalization because all those other countries that have done that are much smaller than us. So it's a weird way to look at it.
Yeah, that's true.
There's plenty of examples of it should just be treated more so like people need help. You do it like that. I mean, look, essentially the war on drugs built up the Mexican cartel because people are still doing drugs. Now that they're not doing drugs, like it just built up an empire of illegal criminals. I mean, that's what it did.
Yeah, like, and criminals of all shapes and sizes, which like, again, like in this piece, like I kind of also try to hint at like how, like, when you look at like the time people face for like drugs, if you have this person from like maybe let's say from Rock Island on the 11th Shore I grew up who was in prison for crack, like he will do more time, like this African American will do more time than let's say the dude in Bettendorf who does crack but lives in Bettendorf and is white. Like he will go to jail for a lot less amount of time and probably with a little bit more benefits than this person. It's just like, wow, like through that whole track I try to make these like premises of like making people understand that like we could have been unsensitive. We could like have this perspective on life that makes us more unsensitive and very like not understanding and not honest really, you know? So like with that said, with this project, the QC Arts, like who gave me the grant, they were like, I said that to them because they wanted something that they can promote on their website. I was like, okay, well here's War on Mugs. I feel like this is a good track. The visual is good because there's a visual for War on Mugs too. Very simple, but very dope. I sent that to them and heard nothing from them. And later heard that message of like, oh, well, we pretty much like them being a nonprofit and having people who are like more conservative, who are donating to them, they probably would have lost money there, which I get.
It was a business decision, right?
Yeah, and I definitely get that. Like, get your money. Like, I'm not mad about that. Like, definitely do that. Where it kind of grinds my gears at is like, with this whole year of having this racial tension and all this, and like people understanding and being kind of like enlightened to like the oppression that has been done by like people non-white. This place, Quantity Arts, like express how like they will be about Black creatives.
And then they fire.
So for me, I'm like, but what type of Black creative then? Because like you got something from a Black creative. Like, am I not the cleaned up version that you want, or do you want a specific type of Black? Because if that's the point, like there's something wrong with that.
Well, you got another song for that. It's called "Cause We Black."
Exactly.
I could definitely see where the frustration would come up in there, especially when they're saying they're trying to make room for those kind of conversations, and those kind of conversations need to be had. Did you see Dave Chappelle's opening monologue on SNL after the election?
Yep. Dave Chappelle's one of my influences. That dude's
100%. He's my favorite comedian. But he said what he says is the white kids with the pill problems are now what the 80s were to crack and I think that was a great, like, he brought it together. It's true. I mean, the pill epidemic that we've been going through for the past couple of years is no different than heroin or crack. It's the same shit.
Yeah.
It is. And now it's just in the suburbs and with white people. And then you have white people complaining about how they're doing bad and they have their kid with addiction. And it's like the same, the circle has come. And he just highlighted it so well. Obviously, I'm just really
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, he showed that there was kind of an insensitivity that was like on the Blacks during the crack epidemic versus like the opioid situation now. With whites, just like, why isn't that same energy?
They were criminalized. I mean, everybody was criminalized, but you're not criminalizing like little Sean from the suburb or whatever. Like that's just not, it's not the same. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So it was a great that you brought that up and you highlight that in your work. So, I mean, yeah, man, just, I love it. I love it. I love that you're talking about real shit. It's great to hear that you're, and as an educator, it makes a lot of sense too. I mean,
yeah, man, I'd say everything just comes out of my being an educator, you know, like I always tell people that like art, like because I'm always thinking of like, I'm always, not even that I'm trying to educate people, but it's more so thinking about things that provoke thought. That's always what I'm like about when it comes to like being a creative and educator, like provoking thought, not just for people, but like also myself. Because my art.
Obviously, I'm not a teacher. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Obviously, I'm not a teacher, but I think that sounds like the right way to teach is not teach at somebody, provoke the thought within the person.
Exactly. Yeah. Ask questions, like be observers, like don't be so like hands-on involved only when you need to. We absolutely need to, you know, but that's just my philosophy. And it just leaks through how I like look at art, you know?
Yeah. Well, I love it, man. I got one last question and I'll stop taking up too much of your time.
You're good.
All right. So I've been asking everybody here, and I've been getting all sorts of answers and I love it. You can make it as short or as long as you want. If you had like one piece of advice that you could give somebody who is thinking about making a song and they've never made a song, like one piece of advice, it could be like mechanical, it could be like actual procedure, it could just be energy wise or whatever, just whatever kind of advice you would give to somebody.
Do it and give yourself grace. That's like what I would say, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean,
beautiful.
If you have an inward desire that's like burning, like to create, like do it. Like I know we get into so much places of like, oh, like you have to like take this class for it or that class for it, or like learn about this. Like that's beneficial. Like yeah, do that at some point, but like create. Like when I first created my first like spoken word piece, like I just created. I just did what I felt was natural in that moment, you know, and honest in that moment. And out of that, obviously, like, well, my first piece is obviously way different than my most recent piece. And like, I kind of like had a mindset going into my first piece that like, I have to give myself grace. Like I gotta be places where like my writing doesn't seem like this or that yet. That's okay. Because all that I'm supposed to do right there is do. Like not try to think about it too much, not try to sound like this man or that man, or even not try to like find critiques just yet, but just create and give myself grace for the imperfection that is an aspect of my art, you know?
That's great advice, honestly, because it's hard to do that early on. Well, I mean, it depends. If you go into it like that, it might be easier to do that because you have the knowledge of that. But I think, I don't know, for me, yeah, you're a little harder on yourself when things aren't coming out how you want them to or whatever. And yeah, treat yourself with grace when you like, you wouldn't expect to make every jump shot if you haven't shot a ball, like, you know, like.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's funny. I think I'm going to write that down as a mantra. I'm always saying shit like that. I was like, man, I'm going to write that down for myself.
Yeah.
Grace, because it's something that like, I feel like it's a lifelong thing, you know? You never grow out of the space of like taking chances and knowing that your chances may yield a result that like needs work, and that's okay. I think you're always gonna be in that process as a creative. That's the journey, you know.
I think that's the reason we see so many really successful people like Kevin Hart, for instance, like always trying new shit, because it's a type of mindset. You know what I mean? Like he's always doing some new shit. He's always got some new company or something like that, because it's just like a constant like, and he's okay, you're okay with it not being 100% great right away or not being perfect, because you know that there's a process to it. There's a growth.
Exactly. There's a growth. There's a growth, and I want you to understand that. It relieves a lot of that stress and anxiety that comes with creating, you know? It's just like, okay, if I just create and kind of just free fall off of this metaphorical canyon, I'll be good.
100%. 100%, man. Well, that was, that I really appreciate you taking the time and honestly just like giving me your energy and like having a great conversation. Cause like I said, I'm probably gonna be in a great mood. We got to talk about some of the spiritual things that I literally don't have many people to ever talk about this stuff with. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's cool to share those thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's all love, bro, man. I appreciate it myself too. Like I said, like you're leaving with something and I'm leaving with the energy that's gonna allow me to be very contemplative tonight. So
yeah, hopefully write some shit down. I don't know.
I was gonna say I might just have to. I feel that energy, so I appreciate that energy pass.
Yeah, man, 100%. And if you need anything plugged ever, if you ever want to come on the show, just hit me up. Seriously, that's what I want to create, this weekly music show. It's like for anybody who's got something to release they want to promote, just hit me up. We can do it. So yeah. And I'll keep you posted on all the release dates for all this stuff. But I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you, brother, man. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, man, you too. All right, well, one love and be safe.
Most definitely. You as well, brother, man.
All right, bro.
Peace.